Hey everyone, Isabel Fox here, and in today's video, I want to share 4 key differences I've noticed throughout my 11 years in the industry now that clearly set apart and differentiate typical escorts from the high class escorts. Now, that is not to say that there is anything wrong with being a typical escort, because there isn't. But the reason I started paying attention to this at all was because I was once a typical escort. And I used to look up to and admire the high class escorts I saw who were charging $1,000 or more an hour, who seemed to be living a lifestyle of financial freedom that I could just never get to. At the time, I worked in a parlor and I got paid $155 to $255 an hour, and that depended on whether I could get a client to upgrade from standard to deluxe. Unfortunately, my income was incredibly inconsistent. It was hugely competitive, the environment that I was in. Sometimes 20 to 30 girls were on the floor that I was hoping clients would choose me out of. I had to do quite high volume work at that rate to make any serious money. And I seemed to just be in this constant fluctuating cycle between total exhaustion and borderline burnout from putting in such long hours of what is physically very demanding work, to then not getting any work or having any income at all, and finding myself stressed and worried about whether I would be able to pay my bills that week. And I remember thinking to myself, this is not the kind of life I got into the industry to live. I mean, the sole reason I got into the industry in the first place was to escape stress and financial instability. But here I was at the time, 3 years in, and that just wasn't happening. So at the time, I started researching high class escorts in Australia. And one of the escorts I came across was Estelle Lucas. Now, Estelle, she was charging more than triple for 1 hour what I was making when I could convince a client to upgrade to deluxe. This blew my mind. In fact, she was actually charging more than 5 times my prices for a standard booking for just 1 hour. Once I saw that, I decided to make it my mission to do whatever it took to level up my escorting, leave the parlor I was working in at the time, and become a high class escort just like she was. Fast forward a few years later, and Estelle and I actually ended up working together as doubles partners. In fact, she was the only escort out of the many I reached out to in the early days who was willing to help me in the industry. When I decided to go private, I contacted a bunch of women, hoping to ask them some questions about their experience in the industry to help me get started. And Estelle was the only one who responded. She even met up with me. Not many people know this story. She met up with me. She told me how to manage my phone, how to screen clients, where to advertise, and a bunch of other really important and helpful information. And it's why to this day, I am such a firm believer in giving back to the industry and sharing knowledge with other escorts. And it is why I make these videos. I spent 3 years in that parlor before I met Estelle, struggling to make ends meet. And I saw online from escorts like her that another path was possible in the industry. And she was the first escort to actually be willing to help me get there. I learned a lot from her, and in the last 8 years since we met, I've been very fortunate enough to interact with and mentor many of the other high-class escorts that I used to look up to. So, without further ado, this is what I've learned in that time, which truly sets high-class escorts apart from the rest and allows them to do things like charge the rates that they do, attract and retain high-paying regulars, have some incredible experiences with high-end clients, but most importantly, just live way less stressful lives. Because all these things, the higher rates, lower volume, more regularity, high-paying clientele, they all lead to financial stability and freedom. So, number one is places a high priority on taking bookings. Now, when I was doing high volume work, although I wanted more bookings, it was also easy to just miss work, turn down bookings, and take days off, because I felt like more bookings were always eventually around the corner. And in actual fact, they were. Even when work was quiet, I always knew in the back of my mind that the bookings would eventually come. And because of that, this weird paradox emerged. I wanted to work and make money, which meant, of course, in our industry, taking bookings. But I didn't truly value bookings, and I didn't really prioritize taking bookings. I basically wanted them when it suited me, and I took them when it suited me and turned them down when it didn't suit me. knowing that even if I went a week or 2 weeks without working, there would always be new clients available when I started again. Now, this isn't wrong. It's actually incredibly accurate in our industry. There will always be more clients, particularly at the medium to lower priced end of the market. The problem is that there will always also be more escorts. In fact, there is an incredibly huge supply of escorts. If you go online right now, you will find thousands of options to choose from. Walk into a parlor and don't be surprised if there are more than 20 girls waiting for work. And of course, clients want what they want when they want it. Particularly clients who are shopping based on price, which is the vast majority of them, and who want the most convenient and immediate experience they can get for the best value. And this is exactly what most clients in a parlor or who are spending $500 to $600 or less on a private escort are looking for. So what would happen is I would take time off work or miss bookings, either because I was exhausted from high volume work or because I was cashed up from it and felt like I could take a break. Then I would come back needing to make money and not get any bookings. I didn't have regulars because I wasn't available when they wanted to see me, so they went elsewhere. Each time I took time off, I came back being incredibly reliant on getting totally new clients. But of course, thousands of other escorts were in the exact same position as I was. Gone are the days when there are more clients than escorts. Now it's the other way around. There is ample choice and ample supply for a client, and so I was just one of many, and therefore often didn't get the work when I needed it, which of course was the exact same time every other escort needed it too. I had no regulars to rely on because I hadn't prioritized taking bookings with them when they wanted it, so of course they moved on to someone else. And so this perpetual cycle of highs and lows continued on and on. Compare this in contrast to high-class escorts I've known who treat every booking and every inquiry like it's gold. I always wanted financial freedom and time flexibility from doing this job, but I eventually came to realize that you have to work for these two things. They don't just happen out of thin air. You can become more selective with your time once you've earned the client base to do it. And this is what I've seen high-class escorts do incredibly well. They place a very high value and high priority on taking bookings, even when it's an inconvenience to them, and especially in the early stages of their careers. They will change personal plans, move appointments, cancel social activities with their friends to take bookings, because they understand that each client is a potential regular in the making. Clients, even high-value clients, want to see you when it suits them. Once they've seen you once, and if you provide a standout experience in the room, they will become more flexible with their schedule next time. But until they know that, until they've met you, you are easily replaced by another option and another escort who is willing to move her plans, to make a booking with a client work based on the client's schedule and not her own. Over the last 8 years, I have seen this time and time again. High-class escorts put bookings first, knowing that by doing so, they're laying the foundations that lead to regular, high-value work. Number 2 is optimistic expectations about each inquiry until proven otherwise. When you spend all day screening idiots who text you saying, "Hey babe," and asking for endless selfies, it can be very easy to become cynical about the job, about men, and about clients in general. But this is unfortunately a reality of the job. If you have your number publicly online, advertising in the industry that we do, you're going to attract some, let's say, interesting attention. Is it fun? No. Just as I imagine crying babies isn't a fun part of running a daycare. It is, however, a realistic part of the job. I had a really eye-opening experience once with a client many years ago who had paid me $1,000 for an hour, which was my rate at the time. Now, he was lovely, despite the fact that he'd started our interaction off with a "Hey babe" text. If I hadn't been on tour, I probably wouldn't have replied, believing that his text was a giant red flag for a time waster. But being on tour, I was sitting around doing nothing and I needed the work, so I responded. And much to my surprise, he turned out to be a genuine client who paid a deposit and the booking went ahead seamlessly. Toward the end of our booking, he was showing me something on his phone, and I could see he had sent this "Hey babe" message to 5 other escorts. This guy was really chatty and open, so I asked him about it. I asked why he had sent the same message to 6 girls at once. And he said something that I will never forget. Isabel, 90% of the time, I text one escort and they don't reply ever. I used to put a lot of effort into contacting my preferred girl, but now I just want to know if she's actually working and going to respond to me or not. So I send out this message just to see if I even get a reply, then I go from there. I was floored. Flawed because what he said made so much sense. I mean, how many times had I texted a fellow worker for a reference or something else and never received a reply? How many times had I contacted an escort for one reason or another, only to get a reply 4 or 5 days later? A lot. That's how much. This interaction with this client, this one-off chance explanation, changed my attitude about inquiries for good, because I had never before thought about it from a client's point of view. And I wondered in that moment how many potentially great clients like this one had I missed out on due to my own cynicism and unrealistic expectations about how clients should contact me. I'm willing to bet that the answer is a lot. And I learned a hard lesson that day. There is always another point of view which arguably is more important than my own, and it's the client's. From that day, I optimistically assumed that on the other end of every inquiry was a client just like this guy, until proven otherwise. And my business was transformed. Clients, particularly high-paying clients, are busy people and they value their time immensely. Sometimes a "hey babe" text is an annoying time waster. And other times it's a wealthy and polite gentleman who has decided that the most efficient way to screen out time waster escorts is to start with something simple. Now, speaking from experience, I get how challenging this can be to do to change your mindset. But anything other than optimism until proven otherwise hurts only you, and it hurts financially a lot. I started replying to every inquiry, realizing that this was a necessary part of the job I had signed up for, and my regular client base grew. Why? Because I simply started seeing more clients. If you reply to 100 more inquiries, I guarantee you will get more bookings. And when you get more bookings, you increase your chances at getting more regulars. In case it isn't clear yet, regulars mean increased financial stability and a step closer to financial freedom. Number 3, understand potential lifetime value of every client. I was friends with an escort once who had this uncanny ability at attracting phenomenally wealthy clients. Most escorts, when they think of high-value clients, think of doctors and lawyers and businessmen. But this girl had a client who lived at the Crown Casino in his own penthouse. Like that was his home. That was his house. He lived there. And this wasn't even the wealthiest client in her little black book. We were out for lunch together once, and one of her clients gave her a call. I knew, because we were friends, that she charged $800 an hour at the time. And yet I sat there listening to her arranging a 2-day trip with this client she had for $2,000. So when she got off the phone, I asked her why she had discounted her rate so much for him. Didn't she realize she was only making like $41 an hour? That's 2,000 divided by 48 hours. She just shrugged and she said to me, "He spent $11,000 with me in the last 6 months. I would much rather $11,000 over 6 months than $800 for 1 hour." Again, picture me floored. Now, I didn't have the business language and knowledge at the time to realize that what my friend was talking about was the lifetime value of her client, as opposed to an hourly rate which represented a one-off transaction. Lifetime value means the total money a client is worth to you over the duration of their time with you as a customer, as opposed to the one-off transaction or booking value that they might pay you. Now, at the time, I really prided myself on the quality of the individual booking experience I provided to each and every client. But her response had exposed a flaw in my thinking and a fundamental reason why she had a book of long-term high-value clients who saw her regularly across months and years, and why I did not. I still thought of my clients as one-off booking fees, probably due to my experience coming from high volume, low value, and minimal repeat work in a parlour. You see, I hadn't yet understood that a client could be financially worth so much more to me than just the fee he paid for a 1, 2, or however many hours booking. Think about it this way. If you want to make $250,000 in a year and you charge $1,000, you need to do 250 bookings in a year if you think of your client base and your work as one-off experiences. That equals 20 bookings a month or about 5 bookings a week. Now, 5 bookings a week, in my experience, is achievable. But let's not forget that you will not physically work every single week of the year because you will get sick, you will take time off, and so as a result, for all the weeks you miss, to hit your earnings target, the weekly amount of bookings you need to do will increase more and more. If you're still thinking of your time and your clients in this way, then you will constantly be under pressure to attract more and more one-off experiences. Let's compare this instead, though, to my friend's strategy and pretend that she was aiming to earn $250,000 in a year. Now, this one client of hers had spent $11,000 in 6 months. Let's be conservative and say he ended up spending $15,000 with her across 12 months in 1 year. Though I have to say, I personally know that he spent more. Now, how many of those clients does she have to attract in the whole year to hit her $250,000 goal? $15,000 divided by $250,000 is around 17. 17 clients if their yearly value with her is $15,000. Depending on how long they stay with her, their lifetime value will be higher than this. So, for example, if a client saw her for 2 years at this level of spend, that's $30,000 in lifetime value. However, let's come back to our $250,000 in 1 year goal. That's 17 clients compared to 250. Now, if you're thinking it's going to be much harder to attract 17 clients willing to spend $15,000 than 250 willing to spend just $1,000, I would like to challenge that thinking. Because while $15,000 is a lot of money, it's also an affordable amount of money to someone who is making north of $250,000 a year, which many highly skilled professionals in Australia are, and to someone who places a high value on a satisfying, intimate experience with a high-quality escort. Think about how much less taxing it will be on you, physically, mentally, and emotionally, to take care of 17 clients as opposed to 250 clients. Now, the requirements and expectations of each individual client spending $15,000 with you versus an individual client spending $1,000 with you will, of course, be higher. And that's worth thinking about because not everyone wants a client base with high expectations. The flip side, though, is a far lower volume of clients, far more consistency and regularity in bookings, and therefore less fluctuation in income. When you see less clients, you also have more energy per client, and so you can afford to invest more into each client you see. High-paying clients value the quality of the experience with an escort over everything else. So the better the experience you provide, the more likely you are to keep a client coming back, which in turn increases his lifetime value to you. When I think of all the clients I used to see, when I was charging $155 an hour or $255 or even $500, it was understandably incredibly difficult for me to muster up the energy for each client to make the booking a standout experience. I mean, I did my best, but if you see 5 clients in a day, by the 5th client, you're going to be pretty burnt out, right? And unfortunately, this is what keeps lifetime value of a client at a one-off booking rate of whatever it is you're charging low. If you charge $500 for an hour and you don't get many repeats, if you wanted to make $250,000 in a year, that would mean seeing 500 clients or doing 500 bookings. Understandably, many people can't attract or handle this kind of volume, and so income goals like $250,000 are incredibly difficult to achieve. Now, last but not least, item number 4, a strong why. Everyone wants to earn more money. We all desire to have financial freedom. I mean, try to find a person who doesn't want more flexibility and control and freedom over their lives. Of the hundreds of escorts I've worked with over the years, each and every one of them wanted to increase their rates, attract high-paying clientele, and become a high-class escort. But, most don't. And there is a reason why. Wishes and desires are very different to clear goals and burning dreams. Tony Robbins said it perfectly when he said, "If you sincerely want to change your life, raise your standards." What changes people is when their shoulds become musts. Anybody, once they know, can put into action the three things before this that I just talked about. When you really want to know something, you find a way to figure it out. Estelle wasn't the only escort I contacted back in the day. She was just the only one who replied. But I kept trying and trying and trying till I met someone who would give me answers. Because I wanted to change my life and my circumstances so badly. Because I had a strong why. It sounds corny, I know, and everybody's talking about it these days, but it honestly couldn't be more true. Every escort I've known who has trodden the path from typical to high class and who has attained financial freedom, flexibility, and actually succeeded at satisfying their goals has had a clear understanding of their why, a higher purpose for themselves, for why it's important to them to transform their lives. And it's never an accident. It's never like it just happens. It's intentional. It's a commitment, and it, of course, requires work. The good news is anyone can do it. And the longer you do it, the easier it gets. Because success and results become a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. When you set out to achieve something and put in the work to get it, a number of things happen. Number one, you learn. I can only share this information because I learned it the hard way, which is by doing it. I didn't read it in a book or hear about it in a podcast. I actually did it. And I made heaps of mistakes along the way and figured out why these things are actually important. Number two, learning leads to knowing. And when you know better, you do better. When you do better, you get better results. Results feel good and provide you with more resources and opportunities. More resources and opportunities increases quality of life. When you feel good from success and from an increase in quality of life, you set new, bigger, harder goals. Because you have more resources and more opportunities, you actually increase your ability to achieve these bigger goals. What do bigger goals have? Greater rewards. And greater rewards again increase quality of life. And this cycle is perpetual and self-fulfilling. Learn, know, achieve, increase quality of life, set new goals, over and over and over again. But it starts with a clear reason for doing it. Because it will undoubtedly be hard and painful at times along the way. Now, I like to share my wins on this channel because it inspires and uplifts others, but I've had plenty of failures, quote unquote, along the way. Clients who scammed me or stole from me or took advantage of me, other working girls who betrayed me, tried to out me, abuse me, difficult relationships with unsupportive partners, societal stigma, of course, like we all experience. But when you know why you're doing this job and what you're using it to achieve, all of those challenges become worth it. Never easy, of course, but they become worthy struggles along the road to your eventual success. That's why whenever I speak to an escort who wants to change their circumstances by charging more, attracting higher paying clients, or who just generally want to level up in their work, I start with this crucial question. Why? Why do that when you could be doing any number of other things? Or when you could do nothing different at all and just continue on as you are? And you need to know that answer, most importantly for yourself. Otherwise, the first time a client tries to haggle your prices, you'll get all demotivated and put your rates back down. Or you'll oscillate constantly between working and not working, always half in and half out of the industry. Because the industry isn't exactly easy. For many reasons, all the obvious ones, but also because self-employment isn't easy. There is a reason why the majority of the population prefer to be employed and rock up to a job each day and get told what to do by a boss and take a steady, capped paycheck. So if you're in this industry and you're wanting to get more out of it than you currently are, then I encourage you to ask yourself why. And is this why a must or a should? If it's a must, then it can and will happen for you. If there's anything more you want to know about how to level up your escorting and achieve the goals you've set for yourself, then please like this video and leave a comment below. I love making content that helps other industry workers make meaningful progress, just as Estelle's advice did all those years ago for me. That's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.